The Substance is a horror film that delves into what is known as body horror. This is sort of a subgenre in horror. So, and this one does culminate into that throughout, even from the beginning, in the sense of the overall fear and what haunts everyone is aging, and ultimately the cold grip of death, which is the main driving force of the fear that everyone must face. And it varies depending on one's position. In this case, Demi Moore plays this celebrity who, it starts off, she's had a star on the Walk of Fame. It appears she's doing a show, a workout program has become very popular in that. I seem to think it suggested she did other things, but this is where she ends up, and she's aging out of that role. But body horror, of course, the examples of them, one of the most famous ones would be the Fly with Jeff Goldblum in that, and you know, that approach to it all, and the deterioration from apparently inspired by the HIV epidemic at the time. And but you could throw in dealing with cancer and stuff like that as just being horrified by his own body turning into something else. And this is a response to changes. You all go through changes. No, it's not just puberty. Oh, it keeps going. and you don't like where you end up. You know, you deteriorate because eventually you're in the cold grip of death. So, oh man, if only there was a way to escape it, or at the very least delay it and stuff like that. And there's been multiple stories on this. Twilight Zone dealt with it, and some others, and this sort of thing. But this one has its own sort of unique approach to it, and nearly from the get-go is really disgusting. Despite having, you know, hey, naked women in the movie, yeah. So basically you have this aging star, you know, wanting to turn back the clock, wanting to escape her inevitable fate of being cast aside and forgotten after having been at the very lofty place of celebrity and whatnot, and now it's all going to go away. But there's this mysterious whatever. We never find out who they are and all that. I guess this would be some mad scientist somewhere came up with this strange formula that can achieve this goal. And so that's the science fiction element of it. What is this drug that can enable this, plus the whole system that she has to, she orders it, so I'm assuming only certain people with a certain amount of income could afford this, but it's a whole obviously not legal. There's like a secret facility she has to go to. It's very well hidden and all this sort of stuff, and you keep quiet about it and all that. But it's a means by which to achieve rejuvenation, but a very bizarre and weird way of doing it. And there's you know, a framework of surrealism throughout the entirety of the film, and there's a bookends on each end of it, and you know, and all that. Which is fitting even with the subject matter, and so there's also dark humor in it overall. You know, it's a horror film, yes, but it's a dark comedy in a lot of ways, and it's you know, commentary on vanity and what have you, and how cruel we are to one another, yet at the same time still pursuing it. She gets a hold of this miraculous wonder drug, I guess, and there's this whole process and system you got to do. And instead of just rejuvenating her body and she wakes up and she's young again or something like that, and I'm racking my brain, but I think maybe Outer Limits did one like this too, but but there's quite a few the approach. But this one, and it's the mysterious voice that instructs her on what to do says, just remember, you are one. And so I was like, what do they mean? So she takes it. It becomes very painful. She collapses, and then her back opens up, and this new person seemingly is born here. And it's her in this new body that comes out of her back. Now, her old body doesn't die or anything. It's just sort of in a dormant state. And there's all this sort of paste that they sent with the equipment that for 7 days she can exist in this new young body. And you got to feed the old one this paste. And then you switch back. Now, there's just this blood transfusion you do, and you switch between one another. Which in your mind is projected into the other body. It's not really explained how that would work, but for the purposes of the narrative, it does. And so she wakes up like this and realizes what happened. And of course, it's another actress playing the younger version who doesn't look anything like Demi Moore did in her youth. Now, of course, with today's technology, yeah, you could have done a version of this where it's just Demi Moore but de-aged and all that sort of stuff, which would have been more expensive to do. But in the language of it, it's a better version of you, which would seem to indicate not just your younger self, but someone who's even prettier than you ever were. And, well, look, the girl's really pretty. It's Margaret Qualley or Qualley. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but she's the younger version. So, but that's the idea of, I suppose, this image is created for her to inhabit as she lives out this fantasy life of being young again. And since she's being kicked to the curb from the studio and whatnot, she goes that they're looking for a new replacement, and so she goes in as this new persona that she's created, and she achieves it, of course, and all that stuff. But the process and whatnot, yeah, it's vague here and there. You just get a lot of the gory details. I would assume that there were instructions because she seems to know what to do afterwards. She's really horrified at first, but then she stitches up her old body's back. And there you go. She's got 7 days to live in this other body, which she does. There are very strict rules. Once your 7 days are up, you got to switch back. And at first she does this, but of course, well, she's having too much fun. And oh boy, yeah, well, there's consequences to not following the rules, and it all goes to hell. And really, it's kind of obvious where it's going to go. And the constant reminding, trying the mysterious voice of this, obviously a legal enterprise telling her, she is you, you are her, you are one, that kind of thing. And it's not working. She becomes vindictive and angry at her other self, and the other self likewise. And each one attacks the other. And basically, when she's in her old body, she just starts stuffing her face, eating all kinds of crap. And even that is more of the elements of just how disgusting the human body can be, even though these are not human bodies or chicken parts and stuff, but it's all that, organs and whatnot, it just makes food look disgusting. And so all that plays out in it. And of course, she ends up destroying herself because she sees her as a separate entity, and they attack one another and this sort of thing, and it all goes to hell. You can understand without reason, but as what happens to Demi Moore's version of the character is really horrific. And then ultimately, the final end of violating the rules of this technique or what have you. I mean, I saw it coming, but I mean, you think of Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, and you get there, and really in a very real way, I think perhaps just the reveal of what happened is pretty much the ending of the story. Of course, they get to this book ending concerning her star on the Walk of Fame, and I suppose they still could have done it in some other manner. But basically, she's due to host an awards show, and well, she's not at her best anymore. And but you have to conclude that she's been driven completely insane, and she goes there, but it gets to Monty Python level stuff. Now, granted, the whole thing is in this presentation of a very dark humor, and so that is the saving grace. But it just, I mean, I'm just kind of laughing, at the whole thing, because it's just this horrific final scene, and then the ultimate end for well, her name is Elizabeth Sparkle, the actress, or Demi Moore's character, and how it ends, and geez Louise, what a mess, but still. But all in all, yeah, I think that it went a little overboard there, but it's not enough to tell me, oh man, they ruined the movie and I don't like it. No, I did like it. This was, I mean, it's a bizarre thing to like. But it's well done, well shot, and it makes good use of its simplicity, while at the same time a lot of work put into it. I mean, that's practical effects and quite a bit of the makeup done for Demi Moore and stuff like that, and combined with obviously modern CGI and stuff like that playing into it. But that's how you really should do it. So, and for the most part, takes place in this woman's apartment, and yet has this just sad, torturous ordeal that goes along with her. And the real problem is that her vanity is all she ever had. There's no marriage. If there was one, it's not there anymore. She has no kids. She doesn't have, what the real meaning of life is. And that's why she's in the bowels of that depression. And going to this length was never going to resolve anything for her. And there's just one chance she meets some old guy that knew her way back when, and she almost, she said, yeah, give it a shot, see what happens, but yeah, doesn't take the chance. So ultimately, yes, it's a dark humor. It's disgusting, horrific body horror, some science fiction, of course. But also, as I keep coming to a lot of these horror movies, more times than not, sadness is the ultimate horror, and it is very sad, despite being kind of hilarious. So there you go. The Substance, I do recommend it, but it's disgusting, even though you've got lovely naked women in it. But then the grossness comes along. Yeah, that's always the problem with beautiful women in horror movies. They always mess up the pretty. But then it wouldn't be a horror movie, Anyway, The Substance, well done. So check it out.